Today on the Ask BP podcast, we're going to be answering the question, what are the pros and cons of rural investing? Hang tight.
You're listening to another Bigger Pockets Ask BP podcast, where you'll hear short, direct answers to your biggest real estate questions. Submit your question today on Facebook, Twitter, or the Bigger Pockets forums by using hashtag AskBP. And don't forget to pick up your copy of the Ultimate Beginner's Guide to Real Estate Investing and other great content when you sign up for your free account at biggerpockets.com. With that, let's get to the show.
Hey, what is going on, everyone? This is Brandon from the Bigger Pockets Ask BP podcast. And today's question, we're talking to Alvin, who asked, what are the pros and cons of rural investing? That's Alvin from Louisiana. I'm assuming that's Louisiana, not LA. We'll see. Alvin, what are the pros and cons of rural investing? All right. So first of all, I live in a more rural area. I have trouble saying that. If you listen to the other Bigger Pockets podcast, you know this. I have trouble saying that word. So you're going to make me say it like 50 times today. I'll be good at it by then. What are the pros and cons? So first of all, some pros. I live in an area, so there's a lot of things I like about rural investing. I live in an area, we have, in my town itself, 3,500 people, maybe 4,000. In my county, we've got about 50,000 people. And that's spread out over a half a dozen towns. So I'm not like out in like the backwoods where there's like 7 people and they're brewing moonshine. Is that a word? Brewing moonshine? But I live in, a smaller area, a small little like Mayberry type town, and I get by investing. So it's definitely possible. I will say that first of all. But what are some of the pros? First of all, cheaper prices. When you get into the rural areas, prices are typically lower than you get in cities because there's less people around. There's less competition. There's more land. So you're not paying, downtown New York City, you're paying tens of thousands of dollars a square inch for property. Out in the middle of Kansas, you got a lot of property to choose from, right? So just by scarcity and supply and demand, the prices are a lot cheaper. Number one pro is that. Number two would be potentially more cash flow. Now, this is not always true, but I found this a lot of times in the rural areas. You get a lot better cash flow. And a lot of that's because of the cheaper prices. Typically, the price might be very, very low for a house, $30,000, $40,000, $50,000, $60,000. Yet the rent isn't going to be like $12 a month. I mean, the rent might still be $500, $600, $700, $800 a month, in those rural areas. So you have a little bit better chance of hitting those, mythical 2% rules and things like that if you invest in a rural area. Let's see, another one, less professional competition. I found this is true. Now, there's not a lot of investors in my area. In fact, there's very few guys who do this professionally full time, which is kind of nice because I know that I'm not competing against guys that have been flipping houses for 25 years and they've got a crew of, 40 people and they're doing 20 houses a month. I'm competing against just, a few guys that are doing this in their spare time and maybe 1 or 2 professionals. So it's kind of a nice thing about rural investing. USDA loans. This is not really investing as much as house hacking, but a USDA loan is a loan given by that same government department that certifies your ground beef, the U.S. Department of Agriculture. And they actually offer loans to people who live in rural areas. This can be good for 2 cases. One, if you're house hacking, if you want to buy a house, fix it up, and then sell it, you can use a USDA loan for that, as long as you're going to live in the property. Or you can, if you're in a rural area, you can sell to people who are using USDA loans. The last flip I did, actually, the girl ended up using a USDA loan, 0% down, to buy that property. So, and then another pro, and this could be considered a con, but I think this is a pro. In the rural areas, things just move slower. I hear about people on BP who are like, I went and offered on this property and they had 47 offers in the first 12 minutes. And, mine was in the middle of the pack and I couldn't get the deal. Well, in the country or in the rural areas, there's usually not 47 offers before noon. Like things are a little bit more slow paced. So if you're fast, that is an advantage. I'm generally the first offer on every property that I offer on, and I'm not even that fast, but just people are much more relaxed, and maybe that comes back to the professionalism thing. Just people don't move as fast out in the rural areas. Let's talk about some of the bad sides, the downsides, the cons of investing in rural areas. First of all, you have less properties to choose from. I mean, there's a lot less to choose from, and as a result, appraisals can be tough. It's going to be hard to find that one deal because there's only 12 deals for sale in your town. That can be hard, but also on the appraisal side, when you're trying to sell a property or trying to buy one or refinance one, there's only been 12 other properties sold in the past year. It makes that kind of difficult. Also, appreciation is typically less likely in areas that are rural. And so an area like mine, I get maybe like 1% appreciation on average over the last 20 years. I haven't actually done that research. I should. But typically appreciation is just less than it is in the city just because of supply and demand. Cities are growing rapidly and prices are getting shot up through the roof because so many people are looking for the same properties. In the country, that's not really happened as much. It's a lot more difficult in rural areas to find good contractors. I mean, finding contractors is tough no matter what size city you live in. But in the rural areas, it's even more difficult because sometimes there flat out are not any. I found this to be the case. Like sometimes it's not like a matter of I haven't found the right guy yet. It's there isn't the right guy. I mean, in my town, like I'm lucky to have a good electrician that I like a lot. I have, found a few people that are like a good plumber. I now have a good plumber, but like trying to find a good, for example, handyman that can just take care of like small maintenance stuff has been very, very difficult. And every time we find one, they end up leaving town to go to a city. And so finding good contractors can be tough. Also, you might have to deal with lower quality tenants. Sometimes, not always, but I found sometimes you don't have the same, you can't be as strict with finding good tenants because there just aren't as many tenants looking. Now, I haven't really had that much of a problem with that, but if you're in a really rural area, if you're investing out where you got 100 people in your town, that could definitely be a problem. I mean, your properties might sit vacant a little longer. And then finally, the last one is if you invest in a rural area, you're going to have to go to that rural area often, or you're going to have to live there. Now, you can invest out of the area, but if you invest out of the area, you got to deal with a property manager, and you might not find a good property manager. That's something I deal with. So then you got to live in that area, and if you live in that area, you got to live in a rural area. Now, there's nothing wrong with that. I like living in a rural area, but I don't have an Arby's anywhere within 40 miles of me. I mean, that seems like a silly thing, right? I don't have even a big movie theater within like 40 miles of me. There's one movie theater in my town, and it's like a tiny little thing that breaks down a lot. So like, if I want like cool stuff, I got to travel all the way to Olympia. And Olympia, Washington's a cool city, but it's a 40-mile drive away from my house. So again, that's one of the downsides is I have to live in this rural area, or I choose to anyway. And that is, I guess you could consider that a con. So pros and cons of investing in, hopefully that kind of helps sort that a little bit. Let's move over to the success quote of the day. And today's quote is from Mark Zuckerberg, Mr. Facebook, who said, "The biggest risk is not taking any risk." I like that a lot. It kind of ties in with that whole, I'm too afraid, analysis paralysis. I don't want to get started. I'll never get started. That whole concept that investors face because they're too afraid to get into it. But the biggest risk is not taking any risk. So think about that today. And wrapping up, just remember, in pursuit of your dreams, don't just learn, but take action. For Bigger Pockets and the Ask BP podcast, this is Brandon Turner signing off.
You've just heard another episode of the Bigger Pockets Ask BP podcast. Submit your question today on Facebook, Twitter, or the Bigger Pockets forum by using hashtag AskBP. And for more incredible real estate investing tools and education, including a free download of our book, The Ultimate Beginner's Guide to Real Estate Investing, head over to biggerpockets.com and sign up for your free account today. We'll see you on the next show.